Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to this special episode of Voices from Israel, brought to you by JNF UK. I'm Dana Zohar, and I'll be your host this evening. And joining me behind the scenes is Rebecca Goldman. Before we begin tonight's discussion, I want to take a moment to reflect on our previous episode, which featured film director Yoram Zak and hostage survivor Omer Shem Tov. The response was overwhelming. So many of you reached out to say how inspired and moved you were. If you missed that episode or want to hear more, we're thrilled to announce that Yoram and Omer will be joining us live in London on July 24th for a special screening and UK premiere of Home Omer Shem Tov Speaks, a deeply personal film directed by Yoram, recounting Omer's 505 days in captivity. The screening will be followed by a live interview with both. We still have a few spaces left, so if you haven't booked yet, now is the time. Details are in the chat box and on the JNF UK website. Since that last broadcast, Israel has faced further upheaval. The recent escalation with Iran brought hundreds of missiles targeting civilian areas, striking homes, schools, and hospitals, and disrupting everyday life across the country. Though the sirens have fallen silent for now, the effects of this trauma, physical and emotional, will be felt for a long time to come. Once again, JNF UK was on the ground, responding immediately to the evolving needs. We supported children and families who spent days in bomb shelters or who were evacuated from their damaged homes. We distributed hundreds of activity packs and funded volunteers to run play sessions, offering children emotional relief and parents a much-needed break. In addition, JNF UK reactivated Ir Miklat, our nationwide communal bomb shelter renovation program. Launched after October 7th, the initiative has already cleaned, repaired, and reopened over 6,000 bomb shelters across Israel. Shelters that proved life-saving during these most recent attacks. But providing practical support is only one part of our commitment. It's just as important to listen, to make space for the personal stories that reveal the true impact of these events and remind us why this work matters. Tonight, we're delighted to be joined by someone whose story does just that. Shahar Horovitz is a 24-year-old Israeli author and computer science and entrepreneurship student at Reichman University. On October 7th, her life changed forever when she found herself at the Nova Music Festival, the site of the most brutal massacre in Israel's history. What was supposed to be a night of music and love ended at dawn when red alert sirens interrupted the celebration and sent her on a harrowing survival journey. Several weeks after, Shahar began writing We Were the Sun, a romantic novel that became an integral part of her healing process. As a passionate reader, Shahar deeply believes in the power of words to spark change, offer hope, and help heal. During my conversation with Shahar, we'll focus on her book. While most of the audience hasn't read it since it was published in Hebrew, the book offers a powerful lens through which to explore her personal journey, which reflects the experience of so many in her generation in Israel today. Shahar, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for hosting me.
So I have to start by saying that I've read your book, which, while currently available in Hebrew, is already in advanced stages of being translated into English. And I simply couldn't put it down until the very last line. It's gripping, intense, and beautifully written. It feels incredibly personal, as if it was born out of deep introspection and honest self-examination. So to begin with, could you tell us a bit about where you grew up and what life was like for you before October 7th?
Yes, so I grew up in a small village next to Tel Aviv. A very calm life, and it was an amazing childhood. And when I finished high school, I was like a really good student. I was studying computer science in high school, and then I went to the army for my duty service. And then I served for 2 years and 8 months in the research division in the intelligence forces in the IDF, which was very meaningful to me, and I had a lot of impact there. And 3 days after I finished my military service, I flew to South America to my post-army trip, and then I spent there 9 months traveling, which had a really significant impact on me being in the Nova afterwards. And I came back actually 5 months before that. So
Mm.
that was that was it. And actually I went to the Nova and 2 days after I was supposed to start my first year as a computer science and entrepreneurship
Wow.
student.
Wow. And then everything changed, obviously. Um, so for those who haven't read the book yet, it opens at the Nova Festival on the night of October 6th. Naya is hoping to see Roi, a man she once loved, who drifted out of her life after they met in South America in 2022. She finds him, but overwhelmed, she decides to wait until the next day to speak to him. It's a haunting moment because we as readers know what's coming with the sunrise of October 7th. At that point, the story rewinds to August 2022, retracing the journey that led her to Nova, all while keeping us in suspense about Roi's fate. Shahar, was it your intention to open with such a fragile moment and emotionally charged scene, then shift the timeline so that the reader carries the same uncertainty, tension, and emotional weight that you did in the aftermath of October 7th?
Yeah, so I tried my best to make the readers feel the way I felt that morning. So all this feeling of helplessness and uncertainty, and the way that the world is just shattering around us. And for me, that was the point, to make the readers feel this thing. And I wanted to give a glimpse of the party, like the fun part, and then the
The horror.
the horror, yeah. And then I wanted to shift to like almost a year before that, to give readers the context of how we even got there. Because in order to not just tell my story, but to tell the story of this generation, the of young people that came to the Nova Party, um, it's important to give like who were they? What were they doing? What were they even looking for in that party? And I believe I have hundreds of friends that I met during my trip that came to the Nova Festival because they just wanted that feeling of freedom and happiness and love that they had on their big post-army trip.
Mhm.
And that was the reason they came to the Nova Festival. And I think in order to really understand that youth feeling, that these people, it's to just understand what that trip was all about, and the friendships and the love and the crisis even in between. I think that was important, and I wanted to give the readers an opportunity to feel it.
And you certainly have, I must say, personally. So you chose to name the main character Naya, but it's clearly you, isn't it? I mean, did you feel the need for a bit of distance to tell your story with such openness?
Yeah, so a fun fact is that when my mother was pregnant, I am the older child in my family. And when my mother was pregnant, she wanted to name the baby Naya. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, when she was pregnant with me. But then when I was born, a good friend of the family told her, no, I think Shahar is a better name. So they said, okay, let's go with Shahar. So this name has like a deep spot in my heart. And when I had to like rename the characters in the book, I decided that I wanted to put a different name for my character because I believe that when we read about someone that doesn't have a clear face, that we can actually, Just imagine how she looks like, what she's doing. Um, it gives like a more, you can relate to that character more when you can imagine
It's
it.
like giving the reader extra space for them
Yeah.
to build the character by themselves, maybe.
Yes, and I wanted the book not to be like my biography. Like I wanted it to be a story that is not only mine, but this entire generation. And when it was my name and my face, then it it
It's
doesn't
very
really,
specific,
yeah.
yeah. So you want it wider than that.
Yeah.
Um, so before we move to the next question, I'd like to invite you to read a short passage from your account of the escape from the Nova Festival on October 7th. And this excerpt captures just one small part of a much longer and more complex journey. A moment when, after fleeing for your lives, you and others came upon a Bedouin farm and took shelter there. Please, Shahar.
They're here. You have to hide. The world stopped. We were stunned. The words rolled through my mind again and again, but my body wouldn't move. What did he mean they're here? They couldn't be. We couldn't run away again. Everyone's eyes widened. My pulse quickened so much that I felt my heart would soon pop out of my chest. The guys who had been sleeping soundly just moments ago jumped to their feet. My eyes met Ari's. The boy who carried me when I was at my breaking point now gave me a look that said it all. This was a war of our life. Where are we going to hide? Anna asked. No one answered. The fear was palpable. The distant sounds of gunshots and explosions were moving closer. The terror was paralyzing. I was afraid someone would hear us breathing. Ali ran toward the gate. I was hoping he would buy us some time, but feared that he would give an in and lead them to us. Everyone get under the building, Daniel said coolly. I don't know how he mustered up the calm. I looked at Ari, who confirmed it with his eyes. You're not dreaming. This is real. This was a nightmare and I was in it. I ordered my brain to move my legs, to run after the boys and crawl on my stomach under the concrete structure that rested only a few dozen centimeters above the ground. The sand scratched my bare legs, my stomach, the clothes that used to be white. One after the other, we crawled under the building, 8 young people silently hiding under a concrete structure in a small Bedouin farm in the Gaza envelope. You're fine, I tried to encourage myself. Breathe softly. Then we heard heavy footsteps. From the corner of my eyes, beyond the thrones and branches under the building, I spotted 2 large white pickup trucks. My heart was pounding so hard I wondered if anyone else could hear it. I was filled with more fear than I'd ever felt in my life. More than when I walked alone down the streets of Buenos Aires in the middle of the night, more than when Leah abandoned me in Mexico, more than when I first arrived in Bogota, or when I hitchhiked with strangers down the Carretera Austral. I'd never felt such existential fear, the paralyzing knowledge that these could be my final breaths. I looked at Ari and I'll never forget the expression on his face. Apologetic, pained, so frightened. I'm sorry, he mouthed voicelessly. We done everything we could. The rest was out of our control. The footsteps moved closer, and in the dead silence, I heard yelling in Arabic. I couldn't understand the words, but I could sense the threat. Every yell was closer still, and every footfall making the ground beneath me shake. Every breath heavier, more frightened. I didn't feel like I could control my body anymore. The sense of suffocation spread through my chest, and my heart beat wildly. It was too close, shockingly close. A thought came to me not out of logic, but out of despair. Is this what Jews felt like during the Holocaust? Is that what my great grandparents felt when they hid in freezing huts in Czechoslovakia? Did they also listen for Nazis' footsteps, waiting for the moment when doors opened, when they were found and put on trains to Auschwitz? I'd listened to their stories, but never imagined myself in the same situation. Now it was real. Now we were being hunted, hiding from the enemy, praying for survival. The building weighted down on me, almost suffocating. leaving only millimeters of separation. Every breath I took was a fight for my life, every gulp of air like a rough whisper of wind that made me tremble. We had to keep silent, absolutely still. We couldn't afford to show a single sign of life. The footsteps moved closer now. I saw black boots through the crack between the building and the ground. They were here, right here, just a few feet away. The yelling in Arabic was now happening over my head. I couldn't believe it. There was nothing I could do. No way for me to save myself but keep giving my brain the command to breathe quietly. I closed my eyes and prayed. I'm not a religious person, but in that moment, all I believed I could do was pray to God. I repeated the words of the prayer in my mind over and over, eyes closed.
Wow, like a scene from a horror movie, but unbelievably, it's real. In the book, your account of that day feels almost apocalyptic. You describe being completely alone, cut off from the 30 friends you came with, running through the open fields for hours as your world collapsed around you. You were shot at, rockets fell, there was no help. Police and emergency services told you there was nothing they could do. Roads were ablaze, bodies lay scattered, cars burned. It was really a living nightmare. It feels like you lived a lifetime in just a few hours. So, can you walk us through what happened from just before the first siren until the moment you were finally rescued?
Yeah, the party itself was amazing. I remember telling my friends that I've never seen such a beautiful place in my life. We've been to parties in Panama and Colombia and Brazil, and still it was amazing. And on 6 a.m., the party was going going on and everything was perfect. And me and my best friend, Guy, we were a bit tired, so we just went to sit down. And then we drank some water, and then the DJ said on the microphone that there is a red alert siren and we need to evacuate the place. And the first thing that we said was just we looked at each other and laughed because we said, okay, what's that's okay. Like that's the place where next to the Gaza border that happens
That's normal
all
in
the time.
Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we didn't even think twice about what was going on. And we just packed up our stuff and went to the car. And while going back to the parking lot in Reim, it was chaotic because people were screaming and looking for their friends, and some people just stayed and rested because they said, okay, we shouldn't worry, we can just wait that all this mess will go off. And I had this feeling in my gut. I remember my monologue with a friend, and I told him we should leave. Like we should get into the car and just drive away from here. And he told me, wait, maybe we should stay, look at this traffic jam that it's going to be outside the party. And I insisted because I had this feeling in my stomach that something is wrong. And it took us an hour to get to Route 232, like at the from to get out of the party. And by then, the road was blocked with the traffic jams, and we couldn't move right nor left. And we just got out of the car because there were another red alert, more sirens. And I remember myself sitting on the side of the road with my friend Guy next to me and another friend next to me. And we were okay, like okay, no big deal. We didn't understand the situation, but still we said it's gonna be fine. And then some gunshots were sound behind us from the festival area. And I remember a friend telling me, "Oh my God, someone shot in my car." And I remember the look of the bullet of the rifle just, slicing her front door. And I was shocked, and we just got into our feet, and there was a police officer over there, and I approached her, and I remember asking her what we should do, like what's going on?" And she just told me, "I'm sorry, I can't help you. You should run." And in that
Sure.
moment, my friend Guy, he just took my hand and we started running through the fields of the Gaza border. And in that moment, the gunshot just came so
Did you
clear.
know which direction to run to? I mean, how did you
No,
decide?
it
Just,
was random,
mm,
completely random. We saw people running, so we just went with everyone, like these crazy videos that we saw the days after.
exactly. Hmm.
People were falling, people just the bullets just came out of nowhere. I remember someone shouted, run in zigzags, so we won't the bullets won't find us. And it was chaotic and crazy. And after 30 minutes of like running, slowly the people just, became less and less because the people just, just
Were
ran
scattered
everywhere.
everywhere.
Yeah. And I looked behind me and I found out that I'm alone. That guy, that my best friend that I came with to the party, he was
Wow.
nowhere to be found.
Wow.
And I looked around, I looked at the sky to someone to tell me what to do. And I had this belief in myself that guy's going to be okay, and that this is not the time to start looking for him or start screaming his name, and that I need to go on my own. And I remember keep running, and then a few minutes after, I found three boys sitting under a tree. They were catching their breath. And I came to them and I sat next to them and I told them the first thing that I asked was, where is Guy? And
Hmm.
they looked at me and told me, who are you? I have no idea. Who is Guy? Like, what's going on? Tell me your name. What are you doing here? And I told them really quickly that I was coming from the party and that I lost my friend. And one of them, he just put an arm around my shoulders and told me, everything is going to be okay now. You are with us now. We're gonna get out of this day alive."
Amazing.
And I had no idea, he had no idea if we really would get out of this day alive, but his belief is really kept me going. And then we ran for.
Perhaps in you, that's what you needed to hear in order to keep going.
Yeah, and the fact that I wasn't alone anymore. I had these three guys that I didn't know, but they were so strong and so like they believed we would find a way, and that was enough in that moment. That was more than I could ask for. And we continued to run for about 10 kilometers in the fields while rockets are firing above us. And there was no time to lie on the floor and cover our heads with our hands, because we told us that there are bigger problems than that right now. So
Mm.
we just kept on running. And on the way, there was two more boys that came along, and they joined us. And the boy is one of them. His brother was in the army, and he gave us a location in the fields. He told us, you should go there. I was there in the army. I think it's a good place to hide. So when we got around kilometer from that place, we saw a like concrete building in the middle of the fields, no bushes, no trees around, and that was supposed to be our hiding spot. And I remember looking at that building and then looking at the new friends that I made, and I told them, no, we can't go there, because if we would, then and someone and the terrorists are going to go in there. There's no way to get out. Like that's a trap.
Death trap. Yeah.
Yeah. So they look at me and they told me, okay, what do you suggest? And I was like, I had no idea. I have no idea what to do. But there was some greenhouses nearby. So I told them, okay, we should get into one of these greenhouses and sit and think. And in that moment, I sat down on the floor in this greenhouse, and it was the first time that I actually realized what I was going through. That I was running for my life for 3 hours in the middle of the fields, that I had no idea where my friends are, Police, the army, no one came for us. And I remember my phone call with the police around 10 a.m. in the morning. I called the police and I told them, we are here, we're six people, we need help, someone has to come get us. And they told me, I'm sorry, but I understand there's something wrong in the south of Israel. I can't help you now, but keep on hiding. Um, and then the boys decided we should split. Three would go and look for water because we were exhausted and we didn't have any water on us. And three would stay in the greenhouse.
So
So
that was almost 4 hours or 3.5 hours
yeah,
after everything began.
yeah, and we still didn't know anything that was going on around us. Like we didn't know that terrorists invaded Be'eri or Re'im or Kfar Aza. Like we didn't know anything about that, or the fact that people are being taken away from their homes into Gaza. Um, we had no idea. We didn't know how many terrorists are in here. Like my first thought was, okay, there was like four or five people getting in. It's fine. The army would come. They just killed them, and this all be over. Um, but it wasn't the case, unfortunately. And I stayed with two boys in the greenhouse while the other three went looking for water. And after a few minutes, they called us. They told us, okay, we have a place to hide. Come. They sent us the location. And then we got into Yunus's farm. He's a Bedouin man from Rahat, and he was the one who managing the Thai workers that was working in the fields. They were also a victim because they surely didn't understand what was going on, and they still worked. Some of them still worked in the fields while everything was happening. Um, so we went into his farm and he welcomed us with this big smile of his, and he told us, "Welcome. Everything is going to be fine. This is a safe place. Come, get into my office. There's some air conditioner, there's some water, there's some food, and just wait here and I'll manage. I'll take care of things. I'll try to get you out of here." And I remember myself breathing again in that moment. Like I felt, okay, here we are, we're in a safe place. I remember calling my parents and telling them I'm fine and I'm in a safe place and they shouldn't worry. And my father was already in the south looking for me. He came with my uncle, and I told him, stay away from here, don't go anywhere closer to this place, and I'm fine. And we were there for 2 hours, and it was very calm and relaxing, as much as it can be. We were drinking water and we were eating. I remember he gave us some hummus and cherry tomatoes. It was for me, it was heaven. The boys were.
During the 2 hours, did you hear anything about what's going on outside that
I
farm?
remember I didn't really have battery, but I had some. So, and he gave us some chargers. And I remember that I had a friend at home from a group that he couldn't come to the party because he had a thing on that Friday. And he was like, he was checking with everyone where they are at every given moment. And I was contacting him to know if Guy's okay or my other friends, where are they and if they're okay. But I couldn't, my father asked me not to use my phone because he didn't want my battery to die, so I didn't really use it. Um, but the boys at some point they were so tired and exhausted that they just laid on the floor with their bags and just fell asleep. And during these 2 hours that we were on the farm, two more people joined us from the party. And they were one of them, a guy who was coming barefoot. He was running for 10, 15 kilometers barefoot. And I remember looking at his legs all bleeding. And I told him, how did you even manage to get here all on your own, like without shoes? That was crazy. And around 12 p.m. in the noon, um, Yunus, the Bedouin guy who hired us, he just entered his office where we stayed, with his face pale, and he told us, "The terrorists are here. You have to hide."
That's the passage that you just read.
Yeah. So it came as a shock to everyone because we thought that we're in a safe place, as much as a safe place can be around here, but we believed we're fine, that we're after the hard part. And now he told us that the terrorists are literally here and there was no other exit. There was no place that we could go. And then one of the boys, he was so, I have no idea how he managed to pop that out of his hat, but he just say, "Okay, let's crawl out under the building." The building was a bit like 30, 40 centimeters above ground. He
Sure.
told us, "Let's crawl out like under it." And we stay there, 8 people under this concrete building. And I remember myself being so quiet and looking at the boys, and this look in the eyes of one of these boys that really helped me when we ran. And in his eyes, he told me, we done everything that we could. From now on, it's not in our
Not up
hands
to you.
anymore. Yeah. And at some point, I remember watching their trucks and some motorcycles and just revolving around the farm.
Wow.
And I looked at the boys and I just shut my eyes, and
Wow.
I decided that is the time for a prayer. And I recited the words of Shema Israel, and it really gave me something to do in that moment. And I remember telling myself, "You finish that day at home with your mother, with her hug. Like, this is the only way this day is going to end. Like, there is no other way, there is no other option." And I tried to believe it while being under this concrete. And I remember at some point, we heard the voices in Arabic, the shouting, and we saw the boots, their shoes right in front of us from like a meter away from us. And and that was really, really, really hard. And after 20 minutes, something like that, they left because Yunus, the Bedouin guy, he confronted them and they asked him, "There are people from the party here. We saw them." And he told them that we went away, and he just pointed to some place that he knew we weren't there. But basically, he saved our life. He told us that there were 5 terrorists with the green things on their heads, and
The headbands.
yeah, the headbands, and the like so many guns and rifles, and they pointed it all at him and asked him, where are these people? And he told them, "They're not here. You should go this way." And that was amazing. And when they went away, when they left, then Eunice came to look for us. And we were so scared that they're still here, that maybe he's trying to make, that's an awful thought. But in that moment, we couldn't be sure of anything. So um, we we didn't feel safe to come out of this hiding spot. And eventually he found us and he asked us, "Are you afraid of me?" And we didn't feel comfortable, but yeah, we were afraid of anything at that point. Of everything was scary. We couldn't trust anyone. Um,
Obviously.
yeah, so we asked him to, we told him that we're gonna stay hiding under this concrete, and he told us okay, and he was trying to get us rescue. And about an hour after everything happened, and we some people from the kibbutz, this a place called Maslul and
Hmm.
Tish, they were coming, and civilians came with their pickup trucks and they took us. And
Wow.
I remember it was like 5 minutes drive to this safe place. And in that,
Probably the longest ride of your life.
yeah, and during that 5 minutes ride, people from from the party came out of nowhere, like from under a tree or from a bush or
Wow.
hiding God knows where. And just the truck was full of people, like so full that people were sitting in the back of the truck. And I was shocked that there was so many people here. Um, yeah.
So, I mean, it's just unbelievable. People so young had to go through something so incredibly awful. And that exactly brings me to the next question. On page 188, you wrote, "The trauma began to take over me, stealing every part of the woman I once was." Later, you added, "The woman I was until October 7th was a fighter. Every trace of her has been erased from me." And your friend Danny put it simply, "Some of us stayed there. We came home, but we didn't come back whole." You describe living in constant fear after October 7th, scanning for hiding spots, fearing every car, imagining terrorists arriving in the middle of Dizengoff Square. Even everyday sounds like a neighbor bouncing a ball triggered you. You had flashbacks, nightmares, panic attacks, your body and mind reacting to a world that no longer felt safe. So, how does a young woman still discovering who she is begin to cope with something so all consuming?
Well, at first you don't. I remember myself not leaving the house for a week. Everything hurt, physically and mentally, of course, but physically, my body was in trauma mode still. Like my legs were hurt from, I couldn't even walk from all the running. I ran that day for 15 kilometers.
And we should mention that you're a professional runner.
Yeah, which is it's a miracle too, because when I came back from the trip on May, like 5 months before, I had this thing that I wanted to start running and maybe competing, and I was in a good fit, but this still it was still really hard to run all these miles and all these kilometers with this burning sun and this constant fear that someone is going to shoot at us. Um, but in the first few weeks, I didn't recognize myself. And I remember this trauma affected every basic aspect of my life. I couldn't sleep properly and I couldn't eat. And I even tried to go to reserve duty. And I thought it might help, but it really make it worse. And I didn't know what happened to that smiling, funny girl that I was on October 6th. And in the beginning, I had to relearn who I was and what were my new boundaries. Like I remember that I couldn't walk my dog anymore when it was after dark. In my place, in the place where I live, which is supposed to be the safest place in the world. So everything, the way I see the world changed. And
I
I
remember you even feared that terrorists will arrive to your home and hurt your family. That's
yeah,
what's.
it took me, I couldn't sleep out of fear. I remember it was October, so it was fall, and there was noises in at night from the winds, and it was so hard because every little noise for me, I was getting out of bed and checking outside if someone is out there, and it affected every aspect of me. And I was no longer that smiling, funny girl. I was so hurt and ashamed even, and scared all the time. And I didn't know what to do. But I did start therapy pretty early on, and that helped. But it still is, but it's a long journey. And it took me a long time to shift my mindset and understand that the only person who can save me or help me is me.
Mhm.
And once I decided that I don't want that trauma to
Dictate your
define,
life.
yeah,
Mhm.
to define who I am, then I started to see real progress.
So, I mean, you wrote in your book that your body refused to accept what the mind couldn't digest. And as you just mentioned, the trauma ran really deep. And you moved to New York a short time after October 7th. There, it was the first time you felt space to start picking up the pieces. That's also when you returned to therapy. In the context of your move to New York, your psychologist asks, "Why do you want to run away?" And you reply, "Reality had become the scariest place of all." Looking back, do you see the move to New York as a form of escape? And if so, was it a necessary one for your healing?
I think we can call it an escape, but it was a crucial one because that was the when I said it earlier, I meant that when I learned, I understand that um, I'm the only person who knows how I'm feeling. My parents can help, my friends can help, they can be there, they can support me, but they had no idea how I'm feeling right now and what I really need. And when I got into that plane to New York, it was out of conscious decision, and I knew this is what I needed. So we can call it an escape, but it was an escape in order to heal. And I
A
have many
conscious
friends,
escape.
yeah, the conscious escape, because I have a lot of friends that decided to take a break out of this life, out of reality, and just go somewhere else and heal or start healing. And for me, this is what it was. I knew New York. I have family there. My uncles live there, and for me, I knew I'm going to New York in order to start my healing journey, and it helped.
Um, okay, I want to get to this next question, but it touches on a painful and deeply personal ground. But you've chosen to write about it with honesty and courage, I must say, as part of your healing and soul searching. In your book, you describe how Yuval and Ella, the couple in love you met in South America, were found murdered in a bomb shelter next to Kibbutz Reim, still embracing. Three others you met in Brazil were killed in the fields. Tamir and Ron, the Shakshuka Kings, were shot trying to escape on Route 232. Even some of your friends from high school didn't make it back. But perhaps the most painful loss was Johnny, your close friend. He didn't want to go to Nova, and you describe how you convinced him to come so you could all be together. So I want to ask about guilt. You write about nightmares in which you see Johnny bleeding in the fields. On page 222, you ask yourself, how can you allow yourself to smile when Johnny is buried underground? And why was it me who survived and not them? So my question is, how do you cope with carrying that burden of guilt? And over time, has it shifted at all, or does it still feel as sharp as it did back then?
I believe in the start, we were so overwhelmed with the amount of death. I remember watching the television and the numbers just came up, and I couldn't fathom that so much death. And I remember myself going to 3 funerals in 2 days. Or yeah, my friend went to five in a week. And at some point, I just told my parents, I can't go to this funeral anymore. I can't see that. It could have been me. And this feeling ate me from the inside out. Um, because there was no reason for me to survive when other people didn't, in my mind. And while in therapy and while I was with my friends, we realized there is no way to change what happened. And Johnny, yeah, we convinced him to come to the party, but we weren't the only ones. And this is why it was so important to me to mention that in the book, because there are so many people that came to the Nova Festival with their friends and their friends didn't make it. And so many people are dealing with these guilty feelings of what could have been or what should have been if we did one thing and not the other. And in that quote, you said in the book, there's this monologue with myself, and I'm talking to Johnny. And then in the end of that monologue, he tells me, um, live. I want,
With your inner Johnny, I
yeah,
mean,
yes,
yes.
with my inner Johnny. Um, he told me to live and live for him too. And it took me a long time to get to that place, but I know and I'm sure that the people that I loved, they love me back, and they would want me to live and to go and chase my dreams and hope and dream. And they wouldn't want me to sit in a room, in a dark room, crying over their deaths. And there's so many ways to remember them and to cherish them and honor their death. And I personally, I live with that loss every day, and it's part of who I am now. Like, I'm not crying about it every day, but I there's some like everyday life that I think about Johnny, or I think about the couple in love. They're here. They're in my heart, and that's my way of remembering them. Mentioning them in the book was my way of giving them the honor, the slightest honor that I can, because it's so important that they would be remembered. Um, yeah.
Wow. So true and deep. Um, I'll move to something less heavy with your permission. At the start of the book, you include a playlist, and I wanted to ask what inspired that choice and what role do those songs play?
I wanted to give the readers in every way I can, the way to feel what Naya felt or what I felt in that journey. Because this book is about the Nova Festival and how I survived, but it's also a journey where a young girl or young woman just travel around the world and find herself and learn new things about herself, and she's developing through her books, through our eyes. And I wanted to give a song to every part of that journey.
Mm,
So it begins with happy songs of youth and playfulness in the big trip, and then it moves to some songs that I personally loved to listen to after October 7th, and they really touched my heart. And then some songs that are actually hopeful. And when I hear them, I think about the fact that yeah, new day is coming, and we have to just keep going because this is our life, and we honor their death, and we remember that every day, but we should continue to live and hope and dream. And this is what I wanted the readers to take out of this book. And
mm,
playlist is a way to do that.
very smart way. Um, so on page 225, you wrote, my plans were completely derailed on October 7th. They went up in flames and were left scorched along with the cars in the party's parking lot at Reim. Could you share what your dreams and plans were before October 7th, how they changed in the aftermath, and where they stand today?
Yeah, so I went to the Nova Festival. For me, it was last weekend of adventure and partying with my friends before I need to be a serious student that's studying computer science and entrepreneurship in the university. And things changed dramatically. My dreams were being an A student and maybe meeting a nice guy in the university and having some new friends. And as I said in the book, it all went up in flames. Um, and when I went to New York, I remember there was a point, and I told my dad, I told my parents that I don't want to come back to Israel. I don't want to come back and start university. I don't want to do all of these things. I'm comfortable in my uncle's apartment in New York. I was babysitting some kids. I made some money. I was fine. Like I was living. I could get out of the house when it was after dark, and for me, it was enough at
Mhm.
that point. And then I had a session with my psychologist, and I told him that I don't want to come back. And he asked me the question that you just asked me, what were your dreams in October 6th? And I told him everything that I told you, and he told me, you let them win.
Hmm.
And I remember looking at him and asking him, what do you mean? And he told me, if you stay in New York in that bubbly bubble in your uncle's apartment, in this warm place where you feel comfortable and safe, you're letting them win because it's not winning, it's surrender. You
Hmm.
surrender to the pain, you surrender to everything that happened,
You're
and
giving up your life, basically.
you giving up your hopes and dreams and everything that you wanted to do. Um, and I remember being mad that he told me that. And then we finished the session, and I remember walking in the streets of New York, and all of a sudden I came upon this sign, and it wrote on it, there was a Nova. It was like a construction
Hmm.
company or something.
Hmm.
And I looked at the sign, and the sign looked at me, and I
It
told
was a sign.
yeah, and I told myself maybe it is a sign that I shouldn't let that thing define me.
Hmm.
And it took me a few more days, but after that conversation, I decided that I want to go back to Israel and I want to start my academic year, even though it's gonna be hard, harder than I thought it would be. And I should go back home, even when things are uncertain and the war is still going on up until today. Um, and I felt like I shouldn't give up on myself and I should win, just continue to win.
Um, 100%. I know time is running short, so I'm going to keep moving ahead. So just a very short question. You opened the book with a vivid, almost cinematic description of the Nova Festival, writing, "We were full of light, life, and love." And in the acknowledgements, you add, "To the Nova survivors, we were the sun. One day we will be again." So can you tell us about the process of choosing the book's title, "We Were the Sun"?
Yeah. So nova is coming from the word supernova. And supernova is an explosion of a star that it's in its explosion, it's getting to a magnitude that is a million times more than the sun. And I thought about October 7th in the same way that we, the state of Israel, the people of the Nova Festival, everyone, we were the sun, and they were the star that just exploded in a massive explosion in the exact time that we didn't see it coming. So this is the book title.
Hmm, how wise. And at the end of the book, you reflect on your reason for writing it, the desire to understand how you found yourself running for your life through the fields along the Gaza border, how everything you knew fell apart, and how you're still here despite it all. You also thank yourself for choosing each day to get up and keep fighting. So, how are you today? And without any spoilers, is there space for love in your life now?
So yeah. Uh Today, I think it's one day at a time, and it's been almost 2 years, and if there's something that I learned, that it's never going to go away, and it's part of who I am, but I don't let this experience and this trauma define the person I am, and it only made me stronger and more resilient and more aware of me and my surroundings, my environment. And I focus on the good things and the good things that are in my control. This book, going to university every day and doing my exams and passing my exams and being on top of everything and publishing my book and doing these things that inspire me and maybe inspire others. And this is what keeps me going, and
Mhm.
I love it.
Okay, so before we move to the Q&A, I'd love to end on a gentle and a hopeful note. While you were in New York, you were babysitting a little girl named Emma, and in a quiet, everyday moment, she offered you a piece of wisdom. Would you mind reading that passage from the book to close this part of our conversation?
Yeah. When I sat down to draw with Emma, I found myself recalling that little Naya, the girl who used to dream big and fear nothing, the girl who believed that one day an entire apple tree would shoot out of the ground. Where was I now with my seed planted deep in the ground and no idea if anything would grow from it? Naya, look what I drew. Emma's sweet voice brought me back to reality. She smiled wide and showed me the drawing of a flower field with children running through it. It was simple, childish, drawing with bright colors that exploded over the paper in a wave of optimism. But it hit me like a punch in the gut. I broke down crying. What's wrong? She asked, placing her little hand on mine. I'm sad, I blubbered, looking at her drawing and then into her wise eyes. Sometimes I want to go back to being a little girl, like in your drawing, to grow like the pretty flowers you drew. I don't know if I can grow now. I wasn't sure why I was telling all this to a 7-year-old. Of course you can, she said. In her eyes, I saw an old sage. She could see into me. You just need a little time. Yeah.
Mm.
Are you taking your time? She asked. I'm trying. You know, sometimes seeds have to sleep in the ground for a long time before they start to grow. You need your time, just like they do. But what if my soil is bad? I almost whispered. What if I can't grow? Emma drew a little circle with her finger on the table. You know the great thing about soil. You add some water and some sunlight, and eventually something green always comes out. But what if it doesn't? I asked. Then you try again and again. My mom always says you can never stop trying.
Oh, I love it. Wonderful. So, unfortunately, we only have time for a couple of questions from the audience. Miss Kelly Short would like to know what has helped you the most in your recovery journey?
I think it's two main things. First is being in therapy, and I think that's a crucial part of this healing journey. To go and talk to a professional and being able to get like for me, I'm this person that always looks for answers and to talk to a professional about what I'm feeling and what's going on in my body. For me, it was important and crucial for my healing. And the other aspect is the support system that for me was too it was crucial because my family, my friends, and it's an important part of the healing journey to know that you're not alone, that there are people that understands you, that they are there for you and help you. And even if it's not easy sometimes. Sometimes you're not nice or you don't want to talk, and they understand it all. And these are the two things I think that really helped.
Miss Ann Hoffman Kenny asked, did you always want to be an author?
I love this question.
Me
Um,
too.
I was reading, I
I
always
told you,
love,
by the way, that I told you yesterday it really suits you.
thank you. So I always loved to read since I was a kid. I remember myself going to some other places with dragons and magic and romance and everything. And when I was 15, I started to write for me. And I have 3 books in this folder in my computer that it was written years ago. But I haven't done anything with them for
Oh,
now.
fantastic. More to come.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
But this book, I believe it was a necessity for me to put out there. I never thought this is going to be the first book I'll ever publish. Um, but it was something that came from this deepest parts of my soul, and I had to put out there. And so, yeah, I believe in
It
some
was
way,
therapeutic.
yeah, definitely.
Okay, so Shahar, thank you for your honesty, your strength, and your willingness to take us into some of the darkest and most delicate corners of your story. Through your words, we're reminded that healing isn't linear, that survival isn't the end of the story, but the beginning of a long and complex journey back to oneself. You've shown us that even in the wake of unimaginable pain, there can still be light, connection, and meaning. And to everyone joining us tonight, thank you. If Shahar's story moved you, please help us continue supporting survivors like her by staying engaged with our work. Until next time, I'm Dana Zohar, and these are Voices from Israel.